What up, friends? We are on that new wave, and today we're going to be reviewing Naked Eyes' newest album, Disguise the Limit. Now, it has been a minute since the last original Naked Eyes release, all the way back in 1984. It had a cover album released back in 2007, but other than that, radio silence. The group has always been sort of a one-hit wonder, mostly known for their song Promises, Promises. However, I do think that their debut album, Burning Bridges, is a pretty underrated record in the overall new wave scene. Now, how much has the group with sole remaining member Pete Byrne changed since then? Well, not by much. It's true that this new record is less obviously new wave, opting for a more pop rock sound. However, the classic new wave and Naked Eyes formula is still there, just a bit less synthesized this time. The opening track, Ready, has a very familiar and sort of synthy sound to it. While not classic Naked Eyes, it's still pretty close. I'm really digging that bouncy bass and the simple accent of the acoustic guitar. It has this sort of funhouse, overjoyed nature to it with very dramatic presentation, as the lyrics are largely talked about this dancer who's kind of getting up on stage in preparation to dance. The electric guitar in the background adds some fun texture, and the vocals aren't too shabby either. Now, Kiss Me Hello is pretty Naked Eyes. Those synths and the guitar are a pretty nice combo, and the track has a pretty driving nature to it overall. The chorus is probably one of the catchiest on the record, and I like how the lyrics are sort of a continuation of the last track, as he's now watching the dancer on stage and sort of describing his feelings about the entire thing. It's a pretty simple pop tune, but it's also a pretty effective one. Piccadilly, on the other hand, is one that I'm not too keen on. It's not the worst thing in the world, however, it feels a bit overly cheesy. The bass line especially is pretty cliche, feeling like somebody trying to recapture their youth rather than embracing an evolution. The song in general has a sort of meandering pace to it, not really having an impact, especially on the chorus. The lyrics do a pretty good job in establishing a setting and a picture, but they just don't really do much for me. However, I really do like that suave guitar solo near the end. It's very dreamy and different for the album and the song as well, and I wish this tone was used more here. Coming Up for Air is a track that I feel like is almost there. I like the darker and more unsettling beat that it has. It feels very early new wave, however it just doesn't really go anywhere or do anything with it. The vocals also have this pretty cool ominous cadence to it that fits the exasperated nature of the track. The more impactful electronics, guitar, and vocals during the chorus were also a pretty nice touch. The lyrics are a bit too simplistic, unfortunately, and I think the track is also overly long, but I do like where he was going with it at least. Future in a Photograph is probably my favorite song overall on the project. The new wave beats are in full effect with those industrial touches that I just love, and I love the chill guitar and synths on it as well. It has such a great groove to it that also gives the song some pretty melancholic vibes. I love the guitar picking and bass lines on the verses, and the vocals are also some of the most impactful here. Everything on this track just flows together nicely. No Love in the World is another pretty great track, largely for similar reasons to Future in a Photograph. It has a sort of apocalyptic aesthetic to it with the huge emphasis on the electric guitars and the dark, fuzzy bass and synths. It's still fairly melodic though, and the addition of the string segments are also pretty dramatic and add to the variety of the song. The vocals are a bit quiet in the mix, weirdly, however I really do like this track instrumentally. Shut Up and Dance is not a bad track per se, however I feel like it's a bit unfitting for the album as a whole. I do like how bass driven it is, however there's just not much of a presence to it. The vocals on this one also aren't the best and seem a bit forced at times. It's also trying a bit too hard to be anthemic, I think. It's sort of like a weird low-key Journey B-side or something like that. The twinkly synths are pretty fun though, and there are some nice riffs here and there. Richmond 4am is a pretty dramatic one, but I do dig it. Heavy-handed synth strings and a spacey beat are the backdrop here, and I really like how ominous it sounds. It picks up a bit too as it progresses, almost giving it a sort of film score aesthetic. It also has some pretty interesting use of the lead guitar, kind of just sending it in randomly in the instrumental. It gives the track a nice kick, and you're kind of just wondering when it's going to come in next. It has a really dire sounding tone that kind of separates it from the rest of the songs on the project. Forest of Nottingham, though, is not a great way to end the album, to be honest. It's very unfitting for the album, and it's a bit cliche, too. The vocals sound a bit strained, and there's just not much here that's very engaging or interesting. The focus on the acoustic guitar especially kind of undercuts the electronics that were present on previous songs, and it feels like he just threw this sort of acoustic ballad at the end because, that's what they did in the past, that's what they did in the 80s, so we gotta do it, right? I also think it was pretty unfortunate to end the album on such a soft and low-key note, too. Overall, while not fantastic or anything, a comeback album from an 80s band with almost a 40-year gap between their last original release, it could be a lot worse. It just feels sort of by the books, it's very similar to what Pete did in the past, so why change it now, I guess? This is why I think it's kind of hard to recommend this album to people that aren't already fans of Naked Eyes, and new wave enthusiasts will find things that are way more adventurous, way more experimental and interesting elsewhere. Granted, there are some pretty good songs on here, especially the ones that play with the darker side of pop rock and new wave. It's just one of those albums where you're gonna want to pick out the strong songs and just kind of ignore the rest. Overall, I'm feeling a strong 5 on this new Naked Eyes album. Of course, we do have to talk about album covers on the show, and to be honest, this isn't a great album cover at all. The color choices on this one were really awkward. I don't know what they were going with, this sort of plum shade along with the bright yellow text. The combination of colors is just weird. And the picture that they chose of him isn't the best either. I feel like they should have gone for a much more design-oriented one rather than using a photo of the band and stuff like that. It fits the 80s aesthetic to use a designed or tight focused cover, so I don't know why they didn't do it. And having that weird space around the photograph, I don't know. I don't really like anything about this album cover, to be honest. So anyway, those were just my thoughts on the new Naked Eyes album. What did you guys think? Did you enjoy it? Did you think it was worth the wait, the almost 40-year-long wait? Or was it just sort of someone trying to recapture their past to varying success? Let me know. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell if you want me to go back to the past. That doesn't make any sense. But until the next one, farewell.